Chapter 1. The Low-Rise Quarters. It's so strange to sleep. In fact, all these natural needs. Disgusting. Even eating, not for pleasure, just survival. However, sleeping is pleasant, especially falling asleep. In the world of particles, everything is different from the world of waves and fields, from which I came. In the world of particles, there is so little that can be created, and so much that can be destroyed, demolished, or killed. And I am already bored and uninterested here. I want to go back to my world. But I made a pact, and I can't leave until its terms are fulfilled. I stepped into the bathroom and felt the cold. The mirror was covered in a thick layer of frost. For a second I felt an inner discomfort, something like anxiety. Although I knew perfectly well whom I would see when I wiped away the frost. Hello, Valus. Could you stop breathing? You don't really need it. Scraping frost off the glass is hardly enjoyable.
Ah, Dark Valus. Don't confuse me with anyone else.
Oh, you gods are so pompous. I laughed and waved him off through the mirror.
How's the adaptation process?
Everything's fine. But it feels like you dragged me into this world by opening all the portals with my skull.
That's exactly what happened. You can't have all the fun alone. No memory loss.
No, I remember everything.
About this world.
That too.
And, of course, you remember that you are on the other side, and you cannot utter words that, in one way or another, relate to your mission.
It's irritating. This is a new feeling. I've never felt like this before. Yes. I remember everything. You can, because you're there. I can't because I'm here.
Pull yourself together. Get used to this new state. Calm down and remember who you are in essence. But don't forget who you are in fact.
All right, that's it. Let's close the subject. He nodded and was already starting to dissolve into the mirror, but I stopped him. Why me? Now you can tell me, right?
You wanted it yourself.
That's not quite right. You know exactly what I mean.
No one but you can handle it. The Guardians in this world are stronger than anywhere else. They are directly connected to the time disk. All your plans will be read instantly. That's why you are needed. You craft cunning plans, but at the last moment, do something unexpected. Even if you don't anticipate it. And yet, you always turn it to your advantage.
Basically, you didn't say anything new. Well, okay. What if I like it here?
You're laughing at yourself for saying that. Okay, I must go. Get used to it. And don't be reckless. Remember who you are now, and especially stay away from the low-rise quarter.
Yes, Daddy. Can I skip school today?
Still joking. Believe me, it won't be funny here.
With this phrase, Valus disappeared. The remaining frost on the mirror turned into droplets of water. I approached the transparent wall, which was actually a window spanning the entire room. A stunning view. Incredibly tall, slender buildings, much higher than the clouds. The radiation from one of the local luminaries has a slightly different spectrum. Yes, it's beautiful, but the architecture is what's truly special. It slightly resembles Asgard, but here everything is grander and more majestic. It's strange because ordinary people live in this city. The chaotic arrangement of buildings, in height and other coordinates, created a stunning landscape in the style of a global dystopia. But it's also strange that I didn't enjoy this beauty for long, not as I used to. Some thoughts distracted me. I listened and realized I was thinking about the Dark One's words about the low-rise quarter. Why shouldn't I go there? Why? Because it's dangerous. Why am I drawn to it? No answer. Strange thoughts. I injected myself with 6 antidotes, grabbed my metric card, and shortly after stopping my scooter at the checkpoint of the gray zone, approached the pass terminal. The monitor turned on. A female voice said,
"Your name and status."
"Larry Nord, Major of the Regular Army.
Purpose of visiting the gray zone.
Preliminary recruitment of new recruits."
Your metric card, please."
I showed the small plastic card to the screen. After scanning, the female voice sounded again.
Place your palm on the screen, please."
I did so and immediately felt thousands of micro-injections. Almost instantly, a cloud of some liquid burst from the screen. The pain disappeared immediately.
Visual, voice, and biometric control passed. There is also confirmation of 6 antidotes in your system, but you have an unpaid fine for exceeding altitude.
It took me some time to understand what she wanted. Finally, it dawned on me that I had indeed climbed too high on my scooter while getting here. Discomfort and irritation. How slowly everything works in this reception center. I just forgot to activate protocol number 1144 on official duty. I'll have to pay the fine. I held the metric card to the screen. The pay fine sign lit up. The scanner slid over the card. The payment went through, and the laser grid of the gate turned off. So, I'm in the gray zone, also known as the low-rise quarter. I looked up. The buildings were so tall that their tops weren't visible. What do I know about the gray zone? It's home to those who remained in disputed territory when the war began, as well as their children and even grandchildren. They survive as best they can. In essence, they are needed by neither side. They protect themselves from viruses with respirators and primitive fabric pads soaked in cheap barrier substances. They have their own economy, their own laws. My status allows me to be here and recruit local residents into the regular army. Few refuse recruitment, despite knowing that no one will teach them anything. They will go straight to the front line. The chances of survival there are slim. This says a lot about how they live here. For each recruit, there is personal responsibility and a lot of bureaucracy. Therefore, I wasn't planning to recruit anyone here. Then why am I here? No answer. What am I doing here? I walked on foot. I had to leave the vehicle at the gate. Crossing the border into the gray zone on scooters, aeromobiles, and combat shuttles was prohibited. The oppressive silence was unnerving. This was also a new feeling. After a few blocks, I heard a distant technological noise. A little later, I realized it was the sound of old-fashioned cars running on internal combustion engines. The further I got from the checkpoint, the more alive the low-rise quarter became. Occasionally, I even encountered people who, upon seeing me, hurried to cross to the other side of the street. Here, everyone is afraid of each other. Moreover, no one wants to cross paths with a stranger who is clearly not from their area. However, a few brave souls also crossed to the other side, but then followed me. I felt them, but I didn't realize it immediately. Humans have very underdeveloped or almost non-existent senses for such things. Rather, they are in standby mode, and people themselves do not want to activate them. I disconnected the receiver brain from all sectors and directed my attention backward, focusing on the functions of hearing and peripheral vision. It wasn't easy. It turns out the human receiver works in a chaotic mode, but it was all I had left. So, I managed to handle this task. I could no longer see around me in all axes and coordinates. How difficult it is to be human. Soon, there were more pursuers. They followed me from different sides of the street, gradually closing the distance. I realized that I had not yet fully adapted to my new state. I felt helpless. I became scared. Fear, disconnect. I quickened my pace and turned into an archway. I found myself in a huge square, but immediately realized it was just a courtyard of a residential complex with huge buildings. Here, all processes took place on the lower floors, as in the entire gray zone. Most likely, this is due to the difficulty of supplying the upper tiers with energy and food. I ran to the nearest door. Something near it looked like signs of life. My pursuers chased after me. Now I not only felt them, I could hear them running behind me, from different directions. Near the door, some people recoiled in fear, letting me pass, and I burst through the door. At the end of a long corridor, I saw the entrance to a staircase. I rushed in that direction. Yes, it was unwise to go into a dangerous area without understanding what I was capable of as a human, with very limited abilities and possibilities. But what's done is done. I never regret anything. Moreover, even now, I had a strong feeling that all this would turn out to be beneficial for me. This is one of the few things I have left from being a god. But now I am a helpless human, and I need to get myself out of this situation. The people chasing me also burst into the corridor and ran to the stairs. But I was already running down the steps, and they didn't see where I went. They would have to split up. And they did. Some ran up the steps, others down after me, and some probably stayed in the corridor. Running past the entrance to a lower tier, I slammed the door and continued running down the stairs, trying to be quiet. The trick worked. A little later, I heard the same door open and slam on that tier. They thought I would leave through that floor. But a few people still continued to descend. But it was no longer critical. I moved quietly, so much slower than they did. I carefully opened the first door I came across and entered the floor. Another long corridor and many doors. I heard my pursuers' footsteps at the entrance to this tier. I saw a slightly open door, grabbed the handle, and tried to enter. But an old woman stood on the threshold. She looked at me intently and asked,
"Monk."
There was something strange about her tone. It felt more like a statement than a question. "Yes," I replied confidently and hurried into the room. She gestured for me to follow her. We entered another door and found ourselves in front of yet another staircase. The old woman slid a decorative element on the wall to the right, and the steps moved aside, revealing the entrance to an elevator. We went down. As I understood, we descended to the very bottom level. She led me through a narrow corridor, and when we stopped, she pointed to a door. I entered the room. A man was sitting at the table. He was an old man. I couldn't make out his face. He was enveloped in coils of poisonous smoke. I recognized the smell. People sometimes use a certain mixture of dried plants to transition from one state of consciousness to another. On the table lay animal skulls, stones with symbols carved on them, and other occult magical paraphernalia. The old man paid no attention to me. He continued smoking his pipe, staring vacantly somewhere past me. I patiently waited for him to say something. I had no control over the situation, and I needed something to determine my next course of action. Finally, his voice was heard.
Yes, I can hide your item and keep it for you while you deal with your problems, but you do realize my risks.
Of course, I replied.
3 medium portions of gold dust every 40 days.
The old man said, still staring at one point.
Imaginary credits from glowing tattoos or pieces of plastic do not interest me.
Every 40 days? I asked, trying to express dissatisfaction and readiness to bargain.
Every 40 days.
The old man replied in an unyielding tone.
You just said you understand my risks. If so, then you understand that the Dark Wanderers will come for the stone tablet of the sorcerers. And these are not the guys anyone would agree to deal with except me.
This is news. The stone tablet of the sorcerers. The tablet is a piece of polished stone inscribed with runes and glyphs. Essentially, it's the key to the cave of core crystals, and it is the first thing I need to further advance my mission. At that moment, I was filled with surprise and delight, although nothing supernatural had happened. Being in a state of awareness that everything, one way or another, happens for my benefit and advantage. It is quite natural that objective reality reacts in a certain way and adjusts to my feelings and sensations. But now, in this moment, I felt something spectacular, not permanently, as usual, but like a flash that hung inside me. There is something in this. However, it's not effective and only lasts for a brief moment. An interesting experience to understand from the inside how exactly people feel and perceive themselves in the outside world. Yes, I know that for people, joy and the feeling of happiness are short moments. All the rest of the time, they find reasons for sadness, doubts, fear, complaints about themselves or the outside world. And all this is against the backdrop of a constant search for something, or even not a search, but a chase for something, not clear what. And reality reflects all this in specific, manifested situations. But one must be fair in judgments. It is not easy for them. The human receiver brain works in a chaotic mode and constantly tunes into the usual human sectors of the time disk, jumping from track to track. But people are extremely stubborn in their unwillingness to realize that everything is much simpler and easier. The old man finally looked at me. The coils of smoke had just dissipated. He squinted, shook his head, and said,
"You are not Monk. Who are you and what do you need?"
Well, how did you guess?" I asked with slight irony.
"Did you forget who you are talking to?"
The wizard asked sternly. The first thing that almost came out of my mouth. If you knew who you were talking to. People often do this, compare themselves to others, and when they feel superior, they usually do it arrogantly or even aggressively. You're an oracle or a wizard, aren't you? Come on, cast your stones or cards and tell me, who am I?
"Get out. I don't care who you are."
Tell Monk I want to meet him. I have a proposal for him. At the very least, I'll pay for your services to keep that thing safe. The Sorcerer's Tablet, or whatever it's called. Doesn't matter. I'll pay for it instead of him, even if you double the price. I pulled a gold medallion from my pocket and threw it on the table in front of the old man. This is for the conversation. I'll be back in a few days, and you'll give me his answer. I left the room. In the corridor, I found the old woman who had brought me here. Do you accept transactions, or are you only interested in material profit? I asked her.
What do you need?
The woman replied with a question. A long, tattered cloak with a hood and an old cheap staff. I'll pay 2 free credits.
Wait here.
Soon the old woman returned with my order. I looked at her closely and said, I recognize your face. Who are you?
You're imagining things.
The witch replied.
It's just that I, like you, enjoy playing with dark, cold energies. I can still smell the snow you were holding just a moment ago. We're on the same wavelength. That's why it feels like we've known each other for ages.
She was almost right. It wasn't snow, but it was an ice cube. Either way, after those words, the feeling of familiarity with this woman only grew stronger. But I didn't have time to figure it out. I went outside and, slightly hunched, hobbled towards the checkpoint, leaning on a crooked stick. I slipped past my pursuers. They were still searching for me. But I safely passed through the danger zone and emerged into a deserted area, heading for the exit. Once again, oppressive silence, the rustle of trash under the wind, and lonely lights in the windows of the lower floors of buildings. I thought it was safe here and threw away the staff and cloak. But I was quick to assume. In the distance, I heard voices. A piercing female or child's scream made me stop. The voices were approaching. To my right, a solid wall of monolithic structures stood. To my left, a wasteland, behind which, in the moisture haze, enormous buildings were also visible. There was nowhere to hide, except behind a cardboard shack on the side of the wasteland. So I did. The woman's scream echoed again. A silhouette of a girl appeared from the fog. She was running from someone. The pursuers weren't visible, but the sound of many footsteps was clear. The girl ran past me. I noticed her respirator hanging around her neck. I assume it's inconvenient to run with a mask on your face. You're more likely to suffocate than to escape. A whole crowd of men appeared in view. One of them, in a strange jester costume, stopped, whistled, and signaled the others to spread out. The crowd parted, and I saw that the strange clown was preparing to throw a huge metal axe with a long handle. The girl stumbled and fell. She was breathing heavily, literally suffocating from tears and terror. She managed to get up, but immediately fell backward. The axe embedded itself in her back. The crowd of men cheered and whistled enthusiastically. They patted each other on the shoulders, celebrating their success. The clown stretched out his hand towards the girl. On his hand was a massive iron glove. He clenched his fingers into a fist and then straightened his palm. The axe, lodged in the girl's back, tore free, soared into the air, and in a second was in the jester's hand. I've seen this somewhere before. The men didn't approach her to check if she was alive. They turned and walked in the opposite direction, continuing to celebrate. They were all without masks and respirators. This indicated that they were local elites who could afford antidotes. I waited until they were out of sight and stepped out of my hiding place. I approached the kid. Turned out she was a teenage girl. She lay in a pool of blood with her eyes open. A tear had frozen on her cheek. In the window of the first floor, a silhouette flashed and then disappeared when I raised my head and looked in that direction. I need to leave. Scavengers will arrive soon. Although, no, they won't. The rain started. They fear water, so they always hide during rain. But still, I need to leave. The beautiful rain. It is always illuminated from above by the luminary, whose rays still penetrate a little through the clouds. You raise your head and see myriad sparkling and exploding drops of water. A stunning sight. Tomorrow is a meeting at the headquarters with the colonel and the assumption of the position of unit commander. So it's time to go home. I should go to bed. These useless watchers have arranged my life well, but they could have done a better job with the legend. Couldn't they have made my position and status give me the highest level of information access? I'll have to deal with this myself. However, it won't take much time. I need to go to bed early. Tomorrow will be a difficult day. It seems it will be the easiest of those that lie ahead. I couldn't fall asleep. The rain was still pouring in a continuous stream. It can end suddenly, in a second. But it might keep pouring for another 3 days. And I'm drawn to the gray zone again.